Hey all, Mark Slane, United States Krav Maga Association. Today talking about training flaws. Some self-defense training I've seen is certainly better than others, but all training has flaws, and these flaws are built in. Think about it. We are teaching people to beat people into the ground, to knock them silly, to do major damage, and yet we don't do that in class. We couldn't, we wouldn't be sued, and we wouldn't have anybody showing up. Truly, we're like teaching people to swim without ever getting wet. And I think that's a quote from Roy Miller. We have these flaws in our training, and they're built in on purpose. One flaw right off the bat would be that we do pull our punches, we pull our kicks, we don't really hit people. And again, we're training to hit people by not really hitting people. Under stress, that's certainly bound to come out of us, pulling punches and hitting beside somebody instead of hitting them. If that's how we've trained 1,000 reps, I can't expect under stress for anything else to come out of me. The other thing, a training flaw is our partner in class. There's somebody there for our mutual benefit. It's somebody that cares about you. They want to see you go to work tomorrow. They want you to train with them again in a couple of days. The person attacking us on the street is the exact opposite of that. Somebody who just doesn't, there's scumbags out there that don't mind if they murder you. They've done it before. It doesn't bother them at all. So we're training against someone who's the opposite of what we'll see on the street. Training flaws, our gyms are all nice and open and uncluttered, and they have to be for safety. But as soon as, you're on the street, oh my goodness, we practiced on a bus once, completely different experience, there's no room. The USKMA's co-lead instructor, Sergeant Brandon Hicks, he swears in his gym he's going to bring in shrubs and coffee tables. Because as a police officer, anytime he got in a scuffle, there was a darn shrub or a coffee table in the place. And truly, I believe, again, this is something Rory Miller says, he says, these hazards, it's a gift or a hazard. It's a gift if you see it first. It's a hazard if the other guy sees it first. So, truly we should be mitigating some flaws by practicing that way, which we'll talk about in a minute. So truly, as you can see, we have to have training flaws built in. We have to have them built in. There would probably be no better training for a gunfight than being in an actual gunfight. However, we certainly can't do such things. We have to build in flaws. The way in our classes we try to mitigate these flaws, number one, half of our class, more than half of our class, is hitting pads, hitting targets as hard as we frickin' can. So, the majority of our training is blasting into things, hitting as hard as we can, because that's what we want to come out of us under stress. We take things to the end. We don't think that we know what's going to stop something. Like, for instance, I've seen gyms, they'll throw 2 or 3 things, and then, hey, we're done. Well, maybe that devastated the guy, maybe it didn't. For instance, if we're practicing an outside defense, we might do 3 reps with the outside defense, but then it rapidly becomes outside defense, 5 punches, 3 elbows, grab them, clinch them, throw knees, push them off at the end. Our thought is we spend most of our training there because that's what I want coming out of me with that block. If we just practice a block and stand there in training, that's what's going to come out under stress. Our brain's going to go back to our training. We're going to block and stop. So we blast people to the end, and again, we push off. I yell at my students all the time, push off at the end. They'll throw, their 20 combatives, and they just kind of stop with the guy standing in front of them. Maybe that was devastating. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe he's got something left in him. We push off. We're also scanning, trying to make sure he doesn't have a buddy coming, because they all do. Again, we have to find ways around these training flaws. The biggest thing we do, of course, if you've taken any Krav Maga classes, is we put things under a realistic attack, under stress, and under exhaustion. At the end of our class, we do an exhaustion drill. We we're hitting, we're punching, we're sprinting, we're going crazy. We can hardly lift our arms, and yet we still got to, do the technique. We still got to fight off the attacker. That is invaluable. You know what? If you're teaching things and never once put them under a realistic attack or stress or exhaustion, how do you know they would work under a realistic attack, stress, and exhaustion? Because on the street, well, yeah, the attack's realistic. There's plenty of stress. There's plenty of exhaustion. There's an adrenaline dump. If you haven't trained for that, you haven't trained self-defense, basically. So again, with all these training flaws, they've got to be built in, but we've also got to figure out ways around them. Again, I've been to classes where they do nothing but pull punches. They never really hit targets. Again, that's going to come out of them under stress. We spend most of our class hitting things. Now, when I have a partner in front of me, we're practicing, choke defense, bear hug defense. Now, I won't purposely hit them. But man, I've spent most of my time wearing myself out by hitting things hard and hitting them often. Again, training flaws isn't, that flaw isn't a bad word. It's just find out ways around them. I'll oftentimes in class say, okay, what we were just doing has a flaw. I want them to understand this. My new people will practice, again, 4 or 5 reps with just blocking, and then, okay, this is a flaw. We would never block 5 times. We block once, and then we destroy. This idiot should have done more with his one chance he had to smack me. So, I admit the flaws, let them see the flaws, let them understand why it's a flaw, and then we train correctly. Mark Schlang, United States Krav Maga Association.